So now let's test and see if a user from the San Antonio network is able to access the share that's located behind the Internet Gateway Firewall and then behind the data center firewall. So I'll navigate to that computer, and then if I enter Command R, and then I want to access that share by navigating to 10.20.2.5 \share $. And then if I hit enter, let's see what happens. And after about 30 seconds, this went ahead and timed out. So let's take a look at the traffic logs so we can see why this happened. So we have a few different ways to do this. If we close out of this, we could go one by one to each firewall to see why the traffic is being dropped. But that's not very convenient, especially if you have multiple firewalls that this traffic is going through. So of course, let's check out Panorama. So if I go to that, and then click on Monitor, and as you can see here, just for brevity, I've already got an address filter for the address destination. We're able to see the traffic logs from each of the firewalls. So if we look at this first log here, it's from the Internet Gateway Firewall. And if we scroll over to the right, it's allowed, so we know it's not the Internet Gateway. And of course, the Global SAT Remote Office Firewall, that's shown as allow, so we know it's not that one. So if we continue to scroll down, the timestamp on these data center firewall logs are not correct, so these logs aren't the ones I'm looking for. Maybe it hasn't populated yet. Let's go ahead and refresh. Logs from the data center firewall aren't showing up, so let's go to that firewall. All right, let's take a look at this first firewall log, and you can see here the destination is 10.20.2.5, and the source IP address is 192.168.255.2, which is the NATed IP address of all users coming from the San Antonio firewall. If we scroll to the right, we can see the action is drop, and the rule is block unexpected apps from any zone. So that tells me two things. One, this traffic did not hit the rule that we defined. And two, this is actually a good reminder for you. I did not add the log forwarding profile to the block unexpected apps from any zone. So before we troubleshoot why that traffic did not hit the correct policy, I just wanted to emphasize that when you're making these big changes, especially to firewall rules that have been imported, there will be some administrative burden in order to go through each rule and change the log forwarding profile to the correct one. Or within the log forwarding profile that's already configured on the devices, just go into that profile and tell it to forward the logs to Panorama. Okay, so let's check out Panorama. Let's go to our policies. And we know that the rule worked on this firewall, so let's actually go to the next firewall in the path, which is the Internet Gateway Firewall. Scrolling down, the rule that it hit is coming from the outside zone. So let's see, the source address is the Portland and San Antonio NAT IP, which is correct. And the destination is the backbone zone, which is the correct zone because that goes to the data center firewall and our applications are correct. So that all looks good. So let's go to the data center firewall device group. Scroll down to our rule. Here we go, infrastructure services coming from the backbone zone, which looks correct. All user subnets, that might be correct. The destination is the infrastructure services and the address is any. So that all looks good, but let's see what addresses are in this all user subnets. If I hover over it, a little caret appears. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll click on that. And then I'll hover over value. And we can see it has the IT user subnets, the operation user subnets, which were configured on the firewall previously, as well as the Portland user subnets. But if we expand over that, we can see that both the Portland users as well as the San Antonio user subnets are not using the NATed IP address. And since the traffic that's hitting this firewall is already NATed to that IP address, that's probably the issue. So let's go ahead and modify this rule by clicking on the source address. I'll click add, and then I'll just filter on San Antonio. I'm going to choose the NATed IP, and I'll do the same thing for Portland while I'm here. And choose its NATed IP. All right, let's go ahead and click OK. And just to keep myself honest, I'm going to go ahead and add that log profile to the security policy rule that the denied traffic was hitting. So go to Actions, and I do want to keep the action set to drop because that's the point of this rule. And again, we cover all this in the Deploy, Administer, and Secure Palo Alto Firewalls course, but I will change the log forwarding profile to the traffic and threat to Panorama profile, and then click OK. All right, let's go ahead and commit these changes and push them to our devices. Click Commit and Push. All right, that committed successfully, so let's close out of this, and I'll go back to my computer and try to generate that traffic again. Click cancel, and it'll prompt me one more time, so I'll click OK. I'll go ahead and wait for this to communicate. There we go, that looks a lot better. Okay, let's navigate back to Panorama so we can take a look at these logs. Go back to Monitor tab. All right, that looks a lot better. Let me go ahead and collapse this a little bit so we can see all the information we want to see on one page. Okay, with the Global HQ Internet Gateway Firewall, we can see that that rule was allowed and it hit the remote office infrastructure services. And of course, the data center firewall, that was also allowed and it hit its infrastructure services rule. And finally, the Global SAT Remote Office Firewall also allowed the packet, and it hit the Remote Office Users to Network Share rule. Additionally, you can see with the Global Remote Office, the source address is pre-NATed, but the source address for the other two firewalls is showing the post-NAT IP address, which is what we expect. And from within Panorama, you can look at the detailed log view and view even more information. Just like before, there's plenty of information to see here in the detailed log view. And what I want to point out from the San Antonio firewall is that the source started out as 10.21.1.5, but was NATed to the IP address of the outside interface. Okay, let's go ahead and close out of this. And of course, as you build out your network and use the security profiles to track threats, push user ID information, system information, you can use the ACC Center to see threats and traffic that is happening throughout the entire network, not just what's based on a single firewall. Additionally, just like with the firewall, you can generate reports for the entire network rather than the specific firewall. All right, in the next clip, we're going to look and see how to upgrade a firewall by using Panorama.